Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Stride Summit podcast. Today with me, I have Trevor McHugh. He's up in Toronto, Canada, but he is an Irishman at heart. Trevor, why don't you go introduce yourself and kind of tell him what's been going on with you lately?
Thanks, Alex. Yes, thanks very much for having me. This is an exciting kind of adventure for me. My name, as you say, Trevor McHugh, Irishman living in Toronto, Canada, and I've been working in BIM for about just over 10 years now. To give you a brief kind of history, so I started in BIM in the west of Ireland, actually with a BIM consultant in the west of Ireland in the Business Innovation Centre, Dan Deary, and he basically, I trained as actually an industrial designer, so I had 3D modeling skills, but I met with him and he told me, you need to learn Revit MEP if you want to do BIM, or he recommended that I learn that because there was a big shortage in the industry, and I just thought, okay, this is another 3D modeling tool. I thought, whatever. But no, he was right. Certainly was the premier BIM tool at the time, and still is, many would argue. And so I leaned into it. I learned the Revit architecture and structure and MEP just through online courses, and it was just enough to get me started. And he got me some work. Now I was kind of thrown in at the deep end. I started my first project was a light rail project in Norway. So I was working out of office in Dublin, and it was being certainly been dropped in the thick of things, but it was kind of sink or swim, and it kind of cut my teeth. And I worked with another engineering company in BID in Dublin before I came out to Toronto, and I started as a BIM manager with Enviro Engineering, and that's what brought me to Toronto. So do you want me to give a little more history on what I've been doing and
I
since I came to
I
Toronto?
want to hear about your beginnings in Ireland and what got you into this industry, because a lot of guests that I have on here, they're always, how'd you get into it? And you probably fell into it. Everyone falls into it. And I have a very similar background to you with manufacturing. I did SolidWorks. I did all those parts and pieces. I wanted to avoid construction like the plague. I ended up falling into it, and now I'm loving it. So, but I want to hear more about your past out in Ireland, and then how you kind of grew this into a passion. Where I think you have your own company going on. Been working, right?
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
consultancy. I did start. There was a business innovation center in the west of Ireland, and I went in there as a industrial designer to help these business startups. And there was some cool startup companies. One of them I worked with was a Hollow Guide, and I was doing like the product design for them. And there was a few others as well, and that was actually through Dan Deary, the BIM consultant, who's also in that business innovation center, and he got me basically into BIM, and it was an easy transition for me because I had 3D modeling skills, and I also had a family construction business. So my dad, that lad, led the kind of plumbing and heating division. So I knew the basics of plumbing and heating and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where kind of Revit MEP came easy to me, because I had that kind of side experience. And then I had to learn the modeling skills, and so I came to Toronto in 2014. I came with experience, and I landed a job fairly easily within a few weeks of landing, because I think there were sought after skills, that the BIM
Mm-hmm.
modeling skills were sought after. So I started working as a BIM manager with Enviro Engineering, and I sort of built up their BIM department. They were predominantly CAD, mechanical electrical engineering company. But they asked me to start kind of building up their BIM department, which I did. We got in some nice machines there from Texas. It was a box machines from Texas, and
Box systems. Okay.
and we got our first projects were all retail. With
Mm-hmm.
Turner Fleischer, they're one of the leading kind of BIM architectural companies here in Toronto. We were doing their retail projects, and that was going well. And then we landed some bigger projects with, this was the time of the legalization of cannabis in Canada, and we got some big projects from Canopy. They
I
had
was
big, yeah.
I was gonna say, are we pro cannabis because of the projects, or are we pro?
Well, the funny thing is, some companies wouldn't work with us or wouldn't because of
Wow,
that.
because you were building those projects.
Yeah, we took on them, and yeah, there was a lot of investment, a lot of money behind it, but they wanted things done,
Mm-hmm.
very quickly.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And we worked on a big prototype facility out in Edmonton, and I can tell you a good story where they wanted 2 levels of production. This is a 160,000 square foot facility, all to be
Mm-hmm.
modeled up in Revit, mechanically and electrically, and it just wasn't fitting in. They had an existing building.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was a plastic factory, and they wanted 2 levels of cannabis production, and modeled it up almost just to show them it wasn't going to fit. And then all the clashes and all that, and then we were sent on a plane out to Calgary to meet the structural engineer and go, okay, yeah. They go, oh yeah, actually that's not going to work. And then we were like, then it ended up just doing one floor level. But yeah, it was a challenging time, but yeah, it was certainly it was a good experience, and learned a lot from it. And then
I'm
yeah.
I'm a little curious. What is because we kind of skipped over your industrial modeling background.
Yes.
What I want to know is, how did you go from university or whatever, or even elementary school, high school, however that structure is in Ireland? How did you go from there? Did it go, yeah, I'm going to go and do designing? Because the biggest thing I talk about is there's no career path for BIM, right? You can go to college for BIM, you can do trades and convert to BIM, but a lot of people who are in it kind of fall into it. So I'm curious of how you navigated that path from industrial design. We know you got forced into Revit. You kind of got thrown to the deep end there. And I think that's kind of everybody. That's how I learned. I remember I had the job of getting everyone up to speed from Revit to CAD. And my experience at the time was maybe like 30 days, maybe. And that was from 2013 Revit, and it was 2018 now. And I told him that. He goes, okay, 2 weeks. I said, okay. So getting thrown in the deep end is a common practice. But yeah, I'm curious how you got from there to the industrial design, and then obviously we know what happened in the BIM. So
Yeah, I was drawn to the industrial design, like the invention, that the creative kind of side of it. So it was like a creative design. So industrial design, it's product design, and some people can go down the automotive route and do car design. I know one guy that on the course I done, he went to work from Audi, but yeah, I didn't find a whole lot of work in it, to be honest. I really enjoyed the course, and it was fun, but there wasn't a whole lot of work in the west of Ireland in industrial design. And construction, yeah, it was booming at the time in Ireland, and they couldn't, build houses fast enough. So yeah, there was a ton of work there. Yeah, and what I do like about BIM is the technology is about doing things better, faster, and using the best tools in the market. And whether that's the tech or the software, it's just, yeah, that definitely is is a passion of mine. It's just using the best technology out there.
yeah, and so as far as tech goes, through your career in BIM, obviously LiDAR scanning, that's a big one that's out there. Have you used scanners? Like, what's some other tech that you've used that you were just like, when you saw it, you were just, holy crap, this exists,
Yeah, I actually, my first project actually when I came to Toronto was a retrofit of a building, 3080 Yonge Street. They had a large mechanical room, and they wanted to model it up because they wanted to retrofit it to expand it, and so yeah, we outsourced the 3D scanning, and they to a company. They went in and half a day scanned it all up, and then I started modeling it in Revit. It probably took me about two weeks to model it up, because yeah, it was quite a sizable mechanical room. And there was actually, I remember there was one pipe in it, and I couldn't figure out. A lot of pipes were labeled, and I was working out all the systems and all that. There was one pipe I couldn't figure out what it was, and I had one of the senior engineers looking, and he were steering. I remember steering into the point cloud, and couldn't. And he just dawned on him then, oh, it was like a winter bypass for the cooler and the chiller. But yeah, we got it modeled up, and basically I remember the owner as well. He a senior designer, Dirk. He wanted just the CAD layout. So I exported the CAD layouts from the model in a few minutes, and he was like, "Oh, this is great. This is a great starting point." Like, and he was pretty impressed with him. So I seemed to win him over. But yeah, he was. I remember Dirk and Gary and that company. They're very supportive of BIM, and it makes a massive difference. Because as Dirk used to say himself, he was retired, semi-retired himself, but he had the viewpoint that if you're doing, he thought CAD was like dinosaur stuff, even though,
Yeah.
and so yeah, he was all for BIM and using it.
Yeah, I mean, dinosaur stuff is like when I went to school, and I by no means, everyone out there, I am not an old person, but I was learning how to manually draft, and I was doing what was called drafting technologies. And so you spend, a semester or a couple weeks on one software, then go to the other. And so I touched on everything from SolidWorks to like Blender to Revit, and so I really gravitated toward the manufacturing side. So I was doing a lot of manufacturing, working for companies that making airplane test equipment, pinball machine parts, and 3D printing. Like I love that stuff. And I was very much in the manufacturing mindset, and I was avoiding construction because like I don't like fractions. That was my thing. So fractions. That was the one reason I didn't get into
Yeah,
construction.
you're all imperial in the US, where we are kind of a mix here in Canada, kind of metric and imperial. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was say. Manufacturers decimal points. I could do decimal points all day. But then I got into this modular factory, and that was kind of a very good mix of both, where I got the manufacturing process because it was an assembly line. And then it was construction, and I was seeing basically Legos. That's what it is Lego blocks, building and building and building. And I think that's what kind of stirred a passion in me for BIM, because at that point, even at that company, I really didn't know I was doing BIM, even though I was. So I wasn't as part of the community as I am now, right? So I'm doing this BIM stuff. I'm modeling down to every stud, duct, pipe, whatever. So on the shop floor, they can prefab and put it in. And to me, that was like solving a puzzle all the time. And then as a manager, going in there and saying, okay, on top of all that stuff, now we're going to come up with the workflow. And I actually really love developing the workflow and kind of like the handbook of how everything looks and sets up. And I mean, I had a great team to follow along, but I think that was a key factor of me was going in there was I'm going to set this up and it's going to run like a well-oiled machine, because BIM is not drafting anymore. BIM is so much more than just drafting,
Yeah, process is king. Having good processes, I think it is so important.
Yeah.
You mentioned 3D printing there as well. I dabbled a little bit in that as well. That was fun. So you can obviously you have a prefabrication or fabrication experience, and I done a little bit of that as well. But yeah, it lends itself well to 3D printing or prototyping.
Mm-hmm.
The quality isn't probably there for obviously mass production, but yeah, it's very good for prototyping. But I know there's been big advances made in home building now in 3D printing. It's almost it's becoming viable. I know we got introduced to Stephen Fry, who's also kind of looking into 3D printing homes, and I know from what he's telling me, it's come on a lot, and there's large scale printers out there that can kind of print in concrete and
Oh yeah,
yeah,
they're extruding it like cake batter,
yeah.
And I've seen some of the videos online. I think uh, who was talking? I think it was Jeff at MTM. We were talking about that. About there's a company out there who's printing stuff with their concrete printer, and that is another amazing tool that, like, if you think back on what we did getting into this field, right? The software that we do every day, all the consulting that we do every day, it is beyond anyone's train of thought that is not in the industry of what we do. Like, for instance, when mother or family member asks what you do for a living, what do you tell them?
It's a difficult one because you have to judge it. Like, my family obviously know that I do BIM and they know what it is. But if you're telling someone that you do BIM, if they glaze over, they don't know what BIM is. So then you kind of just kind of dumb it down. You go, I do 3D modeling, and I remember. I remember someone was hearing me and said, "What, you do modeling?" And I go, "No. It's I model houses and buildings and stuff." Yeah.
Yeah, and that's such a super dumbed down version of what we actually do. Like, if we say drafting, they're like, "Oh, okay." So I actually go into explanation, like, "Yeah, you see everything in here. Yeah, that would all be done in a computer first before it gets set down, so that when the builders come, everything fits. Everything fits."
Yeah, and
um,
I think the new term now is digital twin. So it's not it's like
yeah.
it's everyone, it's the buzzword at the moment, digital twinning, and I think that is the way it's going. BIM, it's going to become a live digital representation of a model, and it's going to have a live data feeds and stuff. But it's another thing you have to explain to people as well. But I think there's no shortcut to it. You still have to have good modeling and good processes, and
Oh, yeah. You have to have that if you're doing a twin. I mean, consulting wise, right? You do a digital twin. There are so many different levels of digital twin. There's people that will take a scan and say, "Oh yeah, that's a twin," and just because it looks the same doesn't mean it does the same, right? There's that level, and then there's the level of, I've captured every change order, I have every SKU number of every part of this building here, and here it is for you to manage in facility maintenance. I mean, that's as close as the digital twin I think we can get right now is facility maintenance.
yeah.
And I think the term is thrown out quite loosely right now.
Yeah, I've been at a few talks and a few webinars on it, and I think the starting point is a really good, accurate, as you say, as-built model, which captures all those site changes and change orders. And I recently completed a master's in BIM management at a Ziggurat in Barcelona. So that was probably
Congratulations! Yeah.
the highlight. Was probably we went to Barcelona for a student week back in the end of July, and they had like talks on digital twinning and stuff like that. And no one really seemed, it was interesting, but no one really seemed to have figured it out. Like, they're like, but one question that I came away with, I was like, you got to ask the client, what's the purpose of this digital, and what do you want to use it for, and you kind of work backwards. And because there's a lot of potential, but you have to get value from it, because it's not free BIM. So the more you
Right.
model, the more information you add, the more cost there is. So you have to take a lean approach, I think. So that's another thing that actually kind of used on my course, was kind of agile, kind of lean approach to BIM. So you have your agile kind of scrum team, and you do short little sprints of work, and you review it early and often, and you don't over model and all that kind of stuff. So I think you have to use all these kind of workflows. I know it comes from the tech industry, the agile kind of methodologies, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it lends itself well to BIM. So it's certainly something I've been using the last maybe 2-3 years. Is just having whatever team I'm working with have those little daily stand-up meetings and just review what we're doing and how we're doing it, and how can we improve the process, coming back to the processes.
Oh yeah, and definitely having part of your team a part of changing those processes was, like, for me, massive. Having people have input on what you're doing, right? Because no one knows everything about BIM or Revit. Let's say just Revit. No one knows everything about Revit.
Yeah.
Okay, and on top of everyone using Revit, they're also using BIM 360. They're also using Navisworks. And so you have to have these processes down, or at least a book or an index for people to look back to on how to do things. And that's part of, like, having people talk about those processes with you. So, for instance, if someone came to me and says, like, I have a Navisworks workflow, I'm like, perfect, because I don't know much about it, right? But I had to set the standard up originally because there was no to set up. But the whole time it's like, look, this is an open book. Right now it's it's ever changing because we're ever growing. And as you know, the BIM industry is changing almost daily with all the software and tech. Every day I'm scrolling through the LinkedIn feed and there's always something radical like VR, AR, or something like that. Or some guy found out this cool trick with some code. And now things are getting populated automatically. So
Yeah, you got AI and everything coming into play now.
AI,
It's crazy, yeah. And even you mentioned Navisworks there. Actually, one of the tools, the cool tools I was going to mention was, well, I've been using it for 2 years now, is Revisto, which is basically the coordination tool, but it's in the cloud and you're exporting up into the cloud. I think in terms of like, I know Navisworks is the standard, but I think the one big advantage over that cloud kind of based tool like Revisto is you're getting the consultants who export their model, like even on a weekly basis, their latest model to the cloud. So you kind of have your latest models there as a starting point. So I found it has worked well for me on my kind of recent projects, and it was easy to roll out. But yeah, as I say, there's so many tools out there now, and it's just one of many. Well, yeah, one of the other tools I wanted to just give a shout out to is Plannerly. It's a BIM management
okay.
tool. I know the CEO, Clive Jordan. I'm sure you've already come across him on LinkedIn. He's pretty
I don't
active.
know if we're connected now, but now I'm going to reach out. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a good guy. I remember when I think it was actually maybe like when they initially got started, it was called LOD, and then it became Plannerly. So it is, I would say, one of the coolest tools out there in terms of BIM planning. I would say they even have AI integrated with it now as well. So it's predominantly used for writing your BIM execution plan and all the documentation around that. But there is actually AI where you can get it to write sections and so for you, as a template or starting point.
So you
But
can be like,
yeah,
I don't know how to fill this section out. Can you give
yeah.
me an idea? Yeah.
I got it tested out to write a section on digital twinning, or no, sorry, digital twinning and or a digital twin vision, and yeah, I came up with some content. But yeah, you have to check it. You have to check it. But
What's
yeah, I found it very good for not just for writing the BIM plans, but also for scoping out the level of information needed on projects. So I would, they're very active on the AEC community. So I think they deserve to get a shout out because they're doing good work. Yeah.
So are you doing at BIM working? Are you guys doing code development as well? Like you guys will go and write code, or is it
No,
strictly just like consulting, project
yeah,
management kind of stuff?
yeah. I'm not a coder. Actually, the guy I started with, Dan Derry, in the west of Ireland, he was a coder. He came from Microsoft originally,
Mm-hmm.
so he does do a lot more coding and like writing scripts and work with like Dynamo. I have used Dynamo scripts and I can work with them and adapt them, but yeah, I'm not a coder. I've never really had the time on projects to start developing code. I think it's more of a niche. Certainly a great skill to have, but yeah, it's not one that I have expertise in. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. All the stuff we talked about today so far, if you were to tell a student, like, hey, this is how you're going to get into BIM, or what are you passionate about, right? How do you, because I'm trying to build up this community to like really build up the workforce again, either through trades or through BIM. And, everyone has their own kind of path. Some of it's down a traditional path, college, university, some into the trades. And I've noticed that one thing that I've talked about hiring a lot is game developers. So game developers are looking for a job. I would always hire them because they knew code. And everyone out there in the comments, please let me know. But game developers and code is like a second language to them where they're enjoying it. And so I would hire game developers and be like, yeah, by the way, you can make this program do whatever you want as long as it does what the job needs to be done that week, right?
Yeah.
And they fall into it like pig to mud. And talking to a college professor, he's telling me that there's a lot of students going into game development rather than architecture and engineering. And I believe a big part of that is no one really knows the tech that's happening. right? No one really knows the fact that we're playing with laser scanners or VR lenses every day and stuff like that. So I want to hear your kind of pitch. This kid comes up to you. What's the thing that you're passionate about that you would say, look, if you love puzzles, be a BIM manager, something like that?
Yeah, so it kind of makes me think of my nephew. So he's big into like Minecraft, and as I said to
Mm-hmm.
him, yeah, okay, you build houses, and I pretend ones or pretend worlds, and I build real ones. But you can definitely see they're getting they're going to be so advanced in terms of their tech skills. I think, and construction industry may get a bad rep at times for being kind of archaic, but in certain areas it's so advanced now.
Mm-hmm.
It's way beyond where people think it is in terms of, as you say, the scripting for like the visual programming for Dynamo, for Revit, and so forth. All that is so advanced now, and it's going to probably leave some people, some professionals behind. Is moved on so fast. So with in terms of kids, getting them enthusiastic about it, Stephen, who he introduced us, he has put together a very exciting program here for Indigenous kids here in Canada, and
Mm-hmm.
I volunteered to be like a mentor on it. And basically, they're taking young kids, learning them, like doing an intensive kind of um, course in coding and also Revit modeling. And they're just kind of putting them on a fast track to give them skills that are going to be useful in the workplace. So the idea behind it is, like, if you want to go to become an engineer, you have to go to college for, was it 4 years, and then you might have to do a BIM course for another 3 years. Like in 7 years, like you become a doctor in that time. But what
Yeah.
what they're doing here with these kids is they're doing in like a 6 month intensive course, getting them out into the workplace and start earning a bit of money, and they also get ongoing kind of support and mentoring and work experience. So over the course of 2-3 years, they're going to have not just the tech skills, but they're also going to have the real world experience. And so they'll be building a cohort of kind of doers. So there's a lot of people that are, really good in the theory, and then there's some people that are good at doing. So, we need more doers. And I think that's a really exciting initiative. And I think that's the way to sell it to a lot of young people, I think, is yeah, you want to do something exciting, use some cool tools, and make, start earning your way in life. And
Mm-hmm.
look into the construction industry, and there's a lot of exciting things happening there.
Oh yeah. Okay, so with hiring then, what is your go-to for hiring? So if you're hiring a new BIM consultant to work for you, where are you finding this person?
LinkedIn, I think it's hard to get away from LinkedIn, but
Mm-hmm.
also there's lots of forums. I've obviously signed up for your one recently. I've added my resume to it. So
Sign up for Strive. That's what he's saying.
yeah. And I've interviewed many people before, and you really want to know two things. You want to know what their technical level is at, and their kind of I would say their soft skills, kind of problem solving kind of skills as well, or working with people. So I think ideally what you want is someone to be honest in terms of the technical skills. No one's going to be a superhero and every platform, but if they can
Right.
be kind of honest in terms of their hard technical skills, you can work with them, because you can always learn the technical skills. And then in terms of the soft skills, people skills, is you just got to be they got to be open to learning, and problem solving, and maybe take the initiative to go and learn things themselves. Like, I know when I started learning Revit, it was on my own back. There was no real kind of courses in BIM or anything at the time, so you had to just go learn it, figure it out. And yeah, and there's a lot of pain. There's some pain involved in that, as Dan used to say to me: if you haven't used Revit in anger, you're not experienced. So, but yeah, there is. I'm more than happy to share what knowledge I've gained over the years, and then you can help people kind of progress. They can get to where you are faster
Mm-hmm.
by sharing your knowledge and your experience. And yeah, I think it's so you need the hard technical skills and the personality skills. So I think for that, you just need to speak to someone and have a conversation with them. I'm not a big fan, I guess, real formal interviews, but I think if you can just get speaking to someone on a person to person basis and see where things go from there.
Yeah, it's hard to tell when, you know, someone says Revit experience on the resume, and then you go tell them, oh yeah, I want you to plumb this. I'm like, I only build walls. You know, I was an architect. You know, and so basically, what it sounds like you're saying, Trevor, is if you're out there and you're a game developer or you're interested, get yourself a LinkedIn, start getting noticed, start posting some stuff out there, and, you know, just be honest with your skills. I think that's huge. I would like to start more hiring people that are on LinkedIn trying to make a name for themselves doing their own work. Because, you know, there's traditional means. I can get hired for a company and then learn BIM, or I can go to college and then learn BIM, or I can go be a tradesman, then learn BIM. What I'd like to do is, if you're out there and you want to learn BIM, if you have or you want to learn Revit, let's talk Revit specifically. If you have a university email of some kind, you can get a free trial of Revit. Right? You can go on there and start training now. You can go on YouTube, find all these tutorials. And I'd like to normalize that hiring, because I feel like there are a lot of people out there that, you know, don't have the opportunity to go and apply to these jobs, but they can learn BIM for free if they have some kind of pass or email with a .edu at the end.
Yeah, the courses on like LinkedIn are very good. Like that's if I had to train someone from the ground up, I would say go do those essential courses, do them, watch those videos, do the exercises 2 or 3 times until you know it inside out. And that's just the basics, and that's probably just enough to get you started, get you working supervised on a project. And I like there is a big shortage in the industry of BIM professionals. There's lots of engineers, lots of construction professionals, but if you go into any company, even large engineering companies or multidiscipline companies, generally there's a shortage of quality modelers, and they're overworked, and they just need extra resources.
So I'm going to pull some stats on you. I'm going to blow your mind here. So I developed Strive, you know, to bring these people in, make the resume stand out, getting hired. And through that, I've done some research. Every year, just in the U.S., there's 300,000 graduates for architecture and engineering. Okay. And I can't remember the year, it was like 2017, 2018. AGC said 63% of the companies that are signed up for the AGC have a hard time filling positions for BIM.
Yeah.
I mean, and that kind of,
yeah.
Talk to me about that.
I experience the same thing here in Canada, because maybe it's changed recently, but a lot of the engineers that come out of university, they don't have BIM modeling skills, they don't have, you know, CAD even skills, a lot of them, because they're focusing on the theory. And so I've trained up many's engineer in Revit, and again, it's not that they. But I think the problem is sometimes is not that they don't have the ability to do it. It's just sometimes they don't have the time, because they're being pulled in 2 different directions. They're meant to do the calculations, and then they don't have the time. The modeling is very time intensive. So sometimes it's not that they can't do it. It's just they haven't got the time to be doing both the engineering and the BIM modeling.
Right.
So often, someone like from a trade is obviously a better fit sometimes. Like I recently kind of helped a guy who was an electrician, and he had some back problems and he couldn't go to site anymore. And he took to the modeling like, you know, duct to water, because he had all that kind of electrical experience. And he just ran with it. Like I just had to kind of guide him in the right direction, and like show him the basics. You know, when he gets stuck, he can reach out to me, and I show him, you know, the next how to, you know, where the buttons are and how to do things. And so it's great to be able to help people like that.
I would love to see a path where you go into the trades and knowing you have to have field experience before you can do them. I think that'd be massive for the industry if you're like, yeah, I want to do digital construction. I want to be the guy for plumbing. Okay, well you're gonna go do plumbing. You're gonna do the field work. And then you have 2 career paths at that point. You can go and design plumbing for the guys in the field, or you can go and be a master plumber. And I can imagine this kind of movement would flood the trades with a lot of apprentices and recruits. And also, over the course of years, more opportunities are opening up for, we'll call them certified BIM plumbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think there's a huge opportunity there for that.
yeah, and it's like time in investing time in training those people is very worthwhile because they're bringing so much to the knowledge already in terms of their trade background, and you can learn things from them as well. So it's almost mutual benefit. Like so yeah, I think and that's the way. Look, everything's getting more tech. Construction in general is getting more
Mm-hmm.
tech. So having those tech skills, like if you even have a foreman, like I recently had a foreman that was I done a construction course where there was actually BIM on it, and he could he had some Revit experience, and he could open the Revista model, he could interrogate the model, and yeah, he was even showing me things in Revista that by the end of it, he was showing me how to do things in Revista. He took to it so well, and it's very powerful to have that. If you have a foreman on site that is really tech savvy, and he's looking at the models in 3D, and he can go out on site and inspect it then and verify it, like it's massive value.
Yeah, the way this industry is moving, the more accurate we get, the more buy-in we'll have from the field guys, superintendents, and on-job, on-site people. I think the more faster we're going to build, the more leaner we're going to build, the more lean we're going to build, just environmentally as a whole. And I think right now we've made the shift from CAD to Revit. That's kind of like a broad spectrum now, where everyone's kind of mostly on Revit now, I believe, or people are starting to convert now more into Revit. And I think the next shift is, okay, there's all these programs out there to get Revit in the field. How do we make sure our model's accurate enough to get that to the field guys and have them trust what they're going to receive, from here on to the future?
Yeah, trust is a massive part of it, and having the model integrity, and that you aren't taking shortcuts. You're updating the model, and that's a big part of it. So yeah, you have to know the people you're working with, and your modelers, and that's where those kind of soft skills come in when you can actually talk to people on site or in management and let them know what's happening and what needs to be done, and speak up when you need to speak up. If you see something that's not right or not being done right, you have to speak up, because often there's pressure coming from above, where just get things done, and you have to speak up and say, we can't do it like this. This will just come back to bite us in the ass.
Yeah, how many times in a coordination meeting you'll be running one and I have any questions, it's silent, and you get off, and the next thing you get blasted with 5 emails. Hey, what about this? Why don't you ask me during the coordination meeting, right? So speak up. Yeah, everyone out there, speak up in your coordination meetings. No one's going to think any different. Yeah, you might butt heads with some other uh, uh, disciplines, but that happens on the site anyways, right? Do it now rather than doing it later and having like a wrench in your hand.
Yeah. It's yeah. There has to be a balance between, like, I think with modeling, you don't over model, and you have to produce value. So I think that comes with experience too, and you have to listen to the people you're working with and project managers. They have different pressures coming in, so maybe it doesn't make sense to model up the entire building. Maybe we'll just do the high value areas like mechanical rooms, and just do simple layouts for the typical layouts for other floor levels, or so forth. Like so I think you have to be agile in that way, and that's where I think agile helps a lot. You can refine your what's being modeled, or your features, and the level of detail and the level of information, and yeah, you have to be agile and kind of think on your feet a lot in BIM. So I think that tends to suit kind of probably not I wouldn't say younger people, but just people that are a little bit more kind of can do and kind of problem solvers. So I think that's a good skill to have there.
Awesome. Well, Trevor, I appreciate you joining me today. Why don't you talk BIM working? Let everyone know where they can find you if they want to reach out and talk to you about some stuff.
Yeah, so BIM working. I I named it BIM working because that's I think is important. The BIM works and works well. So yeah, I don't get too sophisticated. Just gotta produce the value. So yeah, that's my consultancy, BIM working. And I work with other consultants as well, and I bring in people as needed. and based in Toronto here, but also looking towards the US as well. Looking for partnerships and collaborating on projects in the US as well. BIMworking.com, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. I'm pretty active there as well. So reach out if you need help with your BIM project. Reach out.
Trevor, thanks again. I loved having you on, and maybe I'll have you on again later another time when we get some more case studies out.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Alex. Thanks very much for having us.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.